Hello, everyone. Welcome to the first episode of the Golden Goal Fantasy Football Podcast. I'm Tom, and I'm joined by my good mate Sam. Hey, Sam, you okay?
Hi Tom, yeah, really excited to get going with this and pump out a bit of content. Should be good.
Yeah, decent. So this week it's the launch of the FanTeam Second Chance half season mini game. So we thought we'd focus on that on this episode. So I've already picked my team. So I'll give a bit of spiel as to why I've picked the players I have and go through it. And then Sam is going to pick his team on the fly on this podcast. And yeah, hopefully that's a good watching experience for everyone. Get to see how Sam thinks, and I'll chip in a little bit with my thoughts, etc. So yeah, let's get into it.
I've not prepped 1 minute for that, so be literally as you said on the floor. Building the team, with two of us at it. Should be good.
So yeah, on the screen now, mate, is just my initial stab at a half season team. Like I said, I've not.
Yeah.
I don't know. I have thought quite a lot about it. To be fair, now I've spent quite a lot of time having an hour about the fixtures and which players I was going to pick. I thought I'd do based on the rules of the game. I thought I'd do a mixture of attacking that double game week and then going a bit longer term. And one of the important things that we've got to consider as well is the auto sub rule. So basically, when one of your 11 players doesn't start, FanTeam will automatically sub in a player from that team in the same position at the closest price. So, for example, if King doesn't start in my team, for example, it'll just automatically substitute Dennis in, and Madison will go to Tielemans or something like that.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'll just go through my team. My goalkeeper, I've gone for David De Gea. I think, to be honest, sorry, mate.
No, I was just going to say, if anyone doesn't know, like you said, you just reamed off, a couple of subtle differences there. And as you said, there's no bench. You can roll your transfers right to the end, and a little bit of a difference in budget. So it's a little change, isn't it?
Yeah, I think it makes it a bit. Well, I actually prefer this format, to be honest, because if you pick your players correctly, it means that you'll field 11 players pretty much every week.
With the safety net.
There's nothing worse than going into a week with 9 or 10 players, is there? So yeah, it's just good to know that pretty much if you do things right, you've got 11 players.
Well, I think, mate, that first thing comes to my head, and I've played a few of the fan teams, sort of weekly games, and that safety net. I know that in the weekly games you can adjust the team on to kick off, but I think the safety net here really is your auto sub and it's your bench, and so therefore if it's a choice like you said between King and Dennis, you might prefer Dennis, but you go with King and you know you're going to get Dennis if for some reason King doesn't start, injury, COVID, whatever. So I think that's a fairly important part of selecting this second half of the season team.
Yeah, so I'll quickly, because we ain't got much time here, so I'll quickly reel through each of my players. Give a bit of spiel as to why I've picked each of them. And then we'll go on to Sam and help him pick his team. So in goal, I've gone for David De Gea. I think goalkeeper is probably the most contentious position in my whole team, to be honest. There are probably 3 or 4 different goalkeepers that you could pick, and they'd probably be as good as each other. I've just gone for De Gea because it's the double game week for him, and he's got 2 reasonably good fixtures. I'd like to think that they can keep 1 clean sheet in those 2 games. And then, usually if Man United don't keep a clean sheet, De Gea will get saves, right? So that was my logic there. The other 2 that I wouldn't say no to picking are definitely Ramsdale and Sarr from Wolves. I think all those 3 goalkeepers do a good job for you, and they come in at a good budget in FanTeam, so you could pick either 3. And then
I think like it, mate, like the thought process. Don't you need to get too hung up with it. Do you pick a cheapish goalkeeper and one that plays and go?
So yeah, three defenders. So I know Trent is marked as a red flag there, but I'm just going to leave him in because, like we said, with this auto sub rule, and I do believe he's actually trained this week anyway, so he should be good to play. But even if he didn't play, someone like Robertson or Van Dijk would come in his place, so I've just left him in. But yeah, I don't think Trent needs much introduction. He's probably the best player for the value in the game, so I think you've just got to have him in your fantasy teams. And I followed the same logic with Cancelo,
He
right?
is Trent's a staple.
Yeah, and
Yeah,
I've followed the same logic with Cancelo. I think both Trent and Cancelo, if you go without them, it's probably a bigger risk. Well, it's a huge risk. So I think you've just got to pick both of them. And then for the third defender, I think he'll be quite a popular pick as well in FanTeam anyway. But I've just gone for Semedo. I think primarily just because he's probably the most attacking of the Wolves defender, and he's priced quite reasonably highly in terms of the rest of the Wolves team. So I think there's probably a risk that some games he doesn't play, but I know if he doesn't, someone will just be auto subbed in for him from Wolves. And yeah, we all know about Wolves' defensive stats, right? They just kept Man United quiet. They are properly solid defensively. So yeah, my three defenders and
I
a
like it,
Wolves
mate.
is my third. I think it's pretty solid.
I think they've looked better recently in the last quite 4, 5, 6 games. So kind of like defensively the old Wolves that we knew under original Nuno, and then the new gaffer this season is certainly, or they said the last few game weeks, they've certainly looked more and more solid defensively. I like it as a pick.
So yeah, and then going into my midfield, I've really gone for this double game week. I think with my midfield and attack, that might be to my detriment or not, but I think at least with Leicester, Tottenham, and Man United, I think their fixtures are good enough to warrant picking their players, and especially because in this game, right, the game starts on that double game week, so you don't need to take hits or anything to bring these players in. You can just have them from the off, and with the likes of Salah away. And other African players, I think it makes sense to have a couple of premium strikers and then bring in Salah for them later on. So, yeah, I've got a midfield of Maddison, Mount, Bowen, and Gallagher. Yeah, I think James Maddison's probably Leicester's. Well, given that Vardy's injured and most of their strikers are at AFCON, I think Maddison's probably the standout attacking asset from Leicester. They've got two pretty favourable fixtures, I'd like to say. So. Yeah, I've gone for him. Mason Mount. So he's been in my season long team, and he's done pretty well. I think Siri's trying to pick up my voice there. I don't know what's happening. Let's get rid of that. So yeah, Mason Mount's been in my season long team. He's done a really good job. He plays 90 minutes most games, which is really important in FanTeam, and obviously he's got this double game week. And I know they're not the best fixtures. But yeah, just knowing that I'll get a 90-minute player for 2 games in a week was enough to make me pick Mason Mount, really. I'd like to think he'll get at least one attacking return in those 2 games.
He's certainly been quite consistent for quite a few weeks now, hasn't he, with attacking returns. And that's something I think he needed, well, from a fantasy perspective, he needed to add to his game. And I'm sure, I think I heard him interviewed and he was saying about more consistent returns. So if that keeps happening, he's gonna become a staple potentially for a lot of people. I really like that pick. I think probably find him in mine in 5 minutes time.
But yeah, the only thing you got to consider with Mount is he's got 3 more games and then he's off to the Club World Cup. So picking Mason Mount basically nails you into making a transfer in a few weeks' time. But I'm willing to do that, I think, for
totally
the games he's got. Yeah, and I don't think the next 2 need much introduction, really. Bowen and Gallagher are 2 of the best mid-price midfielders there are in the game, really. I think both of them they'll consistently play 90 minutes, get attacking returns. Well, with the respect of Antonio for West Ham, they're both pretty much the main men for their teams as well. And they're priced quite highly, so even if they don't play, I'll get someone else from those teams in. So yeah, I don't think need to go over Bowen and Gallagher too much. I'm really happy with those picks. Yeah, my front 3, I've got Josh King. I actually prefer Dennis as an option, but just knowing that paying 0.2 million extra for King, if King doesn't play, you get Dennis, but if Dennis doesn't play, you've got no one. So I think King as a pick just makes sense. He's a bit less risky, and I think he's on penalties, isn't he? Which Dennis isn't. So he may actually turn out to be a better pick. But yeah, that was my logic for going for Josh King. And yeah, my other 2 strikers, I've gone for Kane and Ronaldo, purely because they're some of the best attackers in the world, and they've got 2 double game weeks between them. So yeah, I've gone for Kane and Ronaldo for that reason. And one of them, plus Mount, will probably become Salah and another defender, I think, once Liverpool return from AFCON. And yeah, captaincy's currently on Ronaldo at the moment. I've not been too convinced by Man United, to be honest, so that might change. I might put it on Maddison, to be honest. I know it's a bit
Yeah.
risky, but when you look at it on paper, he's got probably the best fixtures, and he's probably in the best form out of the three of them. So, yeah, it's between Ronaldo and Maddison, I think, for captaincy. I'm not.
Yeah.
I've obviously picked Kane, but I don't fancy him a great deal without Son in that team. So I'll happily have him, but I'm not sure I'm willing to captain Kane over a Maddison or a Ronaldo.
I know this is probably going to get covered in a bit. Do you have any further strategy for a little bit later down the line, or are you just, like you said, working the next few game weeks and then kind of, I know you talked about bringing Salah back in and potential moves for that. Is there any further sort of foresight, or are you thinking, especially with the COVID and the injuries, let's just look a couple of game weeks at a time?
Yeah, I've learned that lesson. That certainly is my tactic at the moment. Partly, it might be just because I don't have the headspace to think that far in the future, and partly because I don't think there's any value in doing so with all the rearrangements that are going to happen, etc. But yeah, I can go Mason Mount and Harry Kane to Salah and Laporte from Man City in 2 moves, and I think that's what I'll do in a couple of weeks' time. But other than that, I'm quite happy to sit with this team for a couple of weeks.
Yeah, nice, mate. Yeah, sound strategy. I'm not. I obviously see loads of managers that love to work many weeks in advance in normal times. I'm certainly sort of maybe 2 to 4 game weeks, 2 to 6 game weeks. If there's a really nice stretch for a good couple of sides, I might look a bit further. But I like to work a little bit more ad hoc with that. And I completely get where you're coming from with your reasoning there.
All right then, I think that summarises my team quite nicely, to be honest. What I'll do is I'll quickly stop this recording now, and then we'll flash up Sam's team once I get it working. Right,
Cool.
So
I've got
a beautiful transition there to your team, Sam.
So sorry, I was just saying, Tom. I've got the screen up ready to build. As I said, I have had a look at the fixtures and things and got a rough idea, but I haven't actually built side at all yet. So this is, completely ad hoc. And are you ready to build with me, mate? What do you reckon?
Let's do it.
So I've got the fixtures up at the moment for a goalkeeper, and just by density of games, I do like the look of De Gea. I've got him in my main side. They've got some nice fixtures. You're sort of thinking surely at some point there's going to be a couple of clean sheets in there. I know it hasn't quite happened yet, but it's got to be. It can't be too long before he sort of turns it around and gets a little bit more solid defensive displays. And with the fact that De Gea has actually just been probably United's best player for quite a few weeks, I don't think I'm going to overthink this one and stick him in there.
Yes, I can't argue with that.
I think
from my team, mate. So yeah,
yeah. Just density of fixtures and actual fixtures, and the fact that he's just been very good. I don't want to overthink that, so just jam him in. I think there's, like you said, there's a shout for Sarr, Ramsdale, even Sanchez at Brighton. But I think just for now, with being the second half of the season, you jump straight into, a lot of fixtures. I'm not going to overthink that one. I think Trent and Cancelo, again, for exactly the same reason that you said, they've both been superb all season. I've had them in the season-long game, both of them from the start, and they've just returned. Well, look at the points; it's ridiculous. 116 and 113, and with the safety net there, if Trent misses or whatever, you get the next player down in that points bracket. So, I think them two are stone cold. I might just move to the midfield for a minute, mate, and let's see what we can sort of build in here. Now, this is a challenge because I reckon there's probably 10 or so midfielders that we could probably pick here. I'm going to pull up some fixtures for myself as we go along, and I think I'm going to have a quick look at Leicester. So I really like Tielemans and Madison, both really well priced. Madison's going through a little bit of a purple patch, a good purple patch. I mean that's some really solid returns there, isn't it? Points wise, um, and then there's the fixtures for him coming up. What do you think of the fixtures, Tom, for Leicester?
Yeah, mate. Apart from that Liverpool game, and they got a Chelsea game in a bit later on. I think they're fantastic games, really. Yeah, well, not fantastic, but they're decent. You got Burnley and Spurs in a double game week. Burnley are near the bottom of the league, and we all know about Spurs defensively. So yeah,
Yeah,
I think those fixtures are good.
like you said, Liverpool a challenge, but Liverpool as soon as Thiago and or Fabinho miss out and quite light in midfield seem to get ran through a little bit. It's happened on numerous occasions this season when it's not his Klopp's favoured three in there, which I think is probably Henderson, Thiago, and Fabinho. So Thiago's a walking sick note. Unfortunately, he's a very very good player. So if he misses out on that game, I can see Leicester scoring there as well. So yeah, I think he's a good pick for sure. And I mean, you could go him or Tielemans. I think I'm just going to go with Madison for that explosive ability that he's shown recently.
It'd be funny if we picked the
So
same
yeah, I'm
team,
not going to
wouldn't
overthink that one, mate. I'm going to have to do a little differential to you, aren't I? Just so we haven't got the same players. We should have done maybe my build first, just so everyone thinks I'm not copying you.
That's all right. I don't think. Yeah, to be honest, I think quite a lot of us will be picking the same 5 or 6 players anyway. I don't think there's much
Again,
there. The likes of Bowen and everything you've done so far, I think, would be pretty common across the whole game, to be honest.
I really, really like those next five. Yeah, honestly, I think there could just maybe to differentiate a little bit, there could be a double up here with Bowen and Antonio, or even one of their other midfielders. We'll see how we go. But Leeds at home, it's a plum fixture. I don't think I think they'll score United away. You're a United fan, Tom. What's you thinking there?
No, I absolutely agree. I think, yeah, the two hard. Well, obviously Liverpool away at the end, but the two hardest fixtures in that close list, you got Leicester and Man United, and both of those teams are leaky defensively. So yeah, great.
I think there's some plum fixtures there. So maybe we pen Bowen in, and because I've got to differentiate from you, Tom, I know a bit of Antonio. I know Antonio's been dropping deeper, and people have been picking up stuff in his game. I still think he'll tick along. I don't know what he's currently doing live right now whilst West Ham are playing Norwich, but I think you can't go wrong with a Bowen and Antonio double up. If one returns, the other one might not, and vice versa. So I think for the fixtures, and with this being the second half of the second chance season game, I think I think that little double up's kind of really really cool. From here, I think let's have a look. I like the Mason Mount again. I think I would have done it regardless for the reasons that you came up with, and he was certainly in my mind for that. So I'm going to go with Mount as well. And then we're going to go up top. I'm not overly. I do fancy, but it's between Kane and Ronaldo, mate. I think it's going to be one or the other. Son's out, isn't he?
Yep.
So it leaves quite a difficult question. What's you thinking between those two there?
I'm completely with you. It's a really hard call, isn't it? When you've only got to pick one of them, which it looks like you're going to have to do, I'd flip a coin on it, really, mate. I think, Ronaldo's obviously got the full strength team behind him, but they can't. Yeah. Man United are looking terrible going forwards at the moment. But he's Ronaldo, and they've probably got the better fixtures as well. If you look at that double game week, they got Villa and Brentford in the same week. It's pretty good.
Yeah.
But then obviously Kane in Tottenham, you'd argue probably a little bit better than Man United at the moment. So.
Yeah, but then you're stuck with the United double up, aren't you? And it's kind of I've avoided Ronaldo in a couple of formats so far. I know he scored the other week, but I've kind of enjoyed that, and I'm setting out precedents there when I have not enjoyed watching United play one bit, and then selecting Cristiano Ronaldo and De Gea with double up. But yeah, I mean, Kane loves the goal against Arsenal, doesn't he?
And to
And
be fair,
Leicester,
yeah.
Chelsea can be got at the moment. There's no two ways about that. We all know they haven't kept it clean. And I can't remember exactly off the top of my head. It's like 8, 9 games, isn't it? I think, or 1 in 8 or 9. I'm sure someone will know the exact, but it isn't fantastic. You know what? For now, let's go with Mr. Harry Kane. I like your shout of King. I mean, I've had Dennis for quite a while. I really like the Dennis pick, but with the safety net, I think Josh King's such a great shout there to have in. And if he misses out, you're obviously going to get Dennis. That leaves me. I'm probably going to go one more midfielder and then one more at the back. Now, who else has got good fixtures and a lot of games? Let's have a look. I mean, you could. What's your thing? I've just slated a Manchester United double up, and now I'm going. You know, there could be a defensive one there with the fixtures, but I think I'm really going to avoid that for sure. Just don't think
I was going to
it's
suggest
sensible.
for you, looking at your budget, was just Diogo Jota.
Yeah, well, I wasn't. I'm not. I don't think I was going to go with Gallagher. I like him, but I think exactly what you've just said. There's the opportunity there to have Jota. I think it's a bit of a no-brainer. He's going to. I mean, he was nailed anyway, but he's going to be starting all those games. My only concern is what's his output going to be like without Salah and Mane. But we'll see. I mean, Brentford at home.
Fixtures are
You'd
fantastic,
hope for
aren't they?
Yeah. You'd hope for a return there. Palace away is a good fixture. I know Palace have been better, but still a decent fixture. Leicester at home. I mean, everyone claims goals versus Leicester a couple of weeks ago, and it didn't happen. But it's a good fixture, and then obviously Burnley and Norwich. So you got 5 really nice fixtures there. And I think when Mane and Salah come back, you can still keep hold of Diogo Jota. I really do. So yeah, I'm going to go with Jota there. He was actually, before you mentioned it, he was going to be my 4th pick for sure. And you know where I'm going, Tom, with this one?
Yeah, I was gonna say with the money you got left, you could go for an extra Man City defender there. I really do like Laporte, because if you look at where he's priced amongst the rest of the Man City defenders, he's the 3rd most expensive, right? So it means if he doesn't play, you'll always get someone else in.
Yeah, it's a good shout, and they're pretty solid, aren't they, Man City, for their clean sheets? I could see a clean sheet against Chelsea. I don't know what you're thinking is there.
Yeah, I could see a clean sheet for Man City against anyone, mate. To be honest.
Yeah, I totally agree. They're looking they really hit form in and around Christmas. I think if you remember last year, they were absolutely ridiculous I know they had a mad run, but they were so good for what's they're good all season, but they generally start a bit slower and then pick up. And until that league's won, I think they're going to be pretty much not unstoppable, but they're going to be really, really solid. Their squad depth is fantastic. They're looking awesome. Again, do we overthink it? Chelsea could be a clean. Southampton, they've looked better recently, but you'd expect City just to nullify most of these teams. Yeah, a couple of plum fixtures there, really. Up until the United game, I know that United always seem to pull out a good result against City, but that's obviously a few games down the line. Mate, I like your rationale on that, and actually, if it keeps my team looking a little bit different to yours, so it's not identical, then there we go. It's £1.7 million bank.
And then, does that leave
that
you
looks really good, doesn't it?
I'm just thinking, does that leave you with enough money to get to Salah at all? Can you get to Salah quite easily, or is that a couple of moves? Looks like
I'd have to do 2 moves there, wouldn't I? Because all those midfielders are around that sort of 6.5 to 7.5 ish. fee. I wouldn't be adverse to taking Kane out and rolling a transfer. So binning Kane at some point to allow for that extra midfielder. Yeah, just simple. Harry Kane. Does that allow me?
Well, the one thing that does work in this,
No,
that with the auto
doesn't
sub
allow
for
me
Mo
it
as
in
well.
one.
Oh, oh well. Yeah,
But two moves to get to him.
the only thing that I think your team works well without it, but the only thing that this auto sub rule does allow for is you can usually guarantee yourself a starting Man City midfielder as well. So say if you pick someone like, well, I wouldn't go as high as De Bruyne or Sterling, but if you pick like a Mahrez, I know he's at AFCON at the moment, right? But if you pick a Mahrez, you can pretty much guarantee that you'll consistently start with a Man City midfielder as well. So yeah, yeah, I think obviously you've got to get to Salah, but I think somewhere down the line you could try and squeeze in a Man City mid there as well if you wanted to.
Yeah, I think De Bruyne is certainly back on my radar there, and the problem with the midfielders, well, there's no problem, but on a fantasy perspective, the problem with the midfielders is where the goals come from, which is absolutely everywhere. I said it really isn't an issue. I think on Sky, I've got like 5 or 6 Man City players, and they've all done me really, really well. Uh, there's a bit of rotation, but we just talked about the fact that you go with a high enough player, you're going to get one of the midfielders. It's not a bad shout at all, Tom. And I wouldn't be adverse to having Mahrez, Foden, Sterling, or De Bruyne at the moment. Even Rodri, I think would take you along nice. So, yeah, I think that could be an option. That could be an option for sure. I think yeah, you can have 3 City players all year in any game, and you're not going to go wrong.
But no,
So
mate. Yeah, it
yeah.
looks like you got a pretty tidy team there. I don't think you need to.
So
I
I've
think
stuck
you
the
can
armband.
go on. Sorry.
I was going to say I've stuck the armband on James Madison there. Burnley away, love it. Really like that. Spurs at home as well. Really, really like that. James Madison's playing well. I think he's fit again. It's a bit of fun as well. Yeah. Let's go for that sort of semi. I say it's Maverick, but it's probably semi Maverick pick. With Madison there, if he goes off, you're going to get some really, really nice returns. Stick the voice on Harry Kane just in case. I actually like both those games as well. I just don't think Tottenham are as free flowing going forward at the moment. So that's why ultimately I think I would stick it on Madison.
Cool. Thanks for that, mate.
I like that, mate.
Yeah, looks good. I think that leaves us with just enough time to go through some of our questions. So I'll just pause the recording and flick to the questions. So yeah, that leaves us with just enough time to get on to some questions we've had from some kind people on Twitter. So the first one comes from Shahed. Well, it's quite funny because we've spoken about him a lot already, so I think the answer is pretty clear. But he said, thoughts on Mason Mount? Is he a good option going forward before the blanks? And would we pick Kane just because Son is injured, and that might mean that Kane's output's probably going to be reduced? I'll just go first. I think Mason Mount's a great option right up until those blanks. He's got a double game week this week. He plays 90 minutes pretty much every game, which is great for FanTeam. He really does seem to be he's scoring goals, getting assists for Chelsea. He's playing pretty advanced. Yeah, I think he's a great option. Probably one of the best midfielders in the game for this week. Anything to comment on that, Sam?
No, I agree with you there. I think Kane, we're just waiting for him to explode, aren't we? A little bit. Was it even exploding with Son? No. So you could actually say you could go for him regardless. And Lucas Moura is playing well at the moment. And there could be supply coming from elsewhere. So it's like, I've just gone with him, haven't I? That second chance team. But with Harry Kane, I'm always waiting for that Harry Kane to come back. So yeah, I like him as a pick.
Yeah, sounds good, mate. Next question from Joe Reeve. Sounds like he's not played FanTeam before, so he's just asking, what are the best tactics for FanTeam? So I'll pick out a few key rules myself. Pretty much, mate, think of it very similarly to FPL. There are a couple of nuances to FanTeam which don't exist in FPL, which make a few players stand out above others. So one of them being the bonus point system. So I know in FPL you have the bonus point system in that game where your players get up to 3 bonus points depending on their performance. In FanTeam that's completely gone, and they've got a bonus point system. Basically, it's based on shots on target per game. And whether a player, well, depending on how many minutes a player plays. So if your player plays 90 minutes and they're a midfield or a forward, they get 3 points per game rather than just the standard 2. So yeah, those are a couple of nuances there to consider if you're new. So as I was saying with Mason Mount earlier, the fact that he plays 90 minutes every game makes him a decent option because you know he's got a baseline of 3 points over 2. Anything else you can think of, Sam?
Yeah, I like those. I like those points, Tom. And I think having a good bench, especially at the moment, is absolutely crucial with the amount of injuries and COVID that's flying around. I mean, if he jumps into it next season, it might be a bit of a different outlook. But I would still think, much like FPL, you want a couple of decent bench players or players that you can rotate in and around. And I've certainly picked up these kind of scoring midfielders, are fantastic. The ones that chip in with goals, obviously that extra point on from the forward, and then like the stuff you talked about, the shots on target, the 90 minutes, and then for a midfielder that extra point for a clean sheet. So midfielders from Chelsea, City, Liverpool, all teams that good midfielders that get clean sheets, and play 90 minutes, then they're such good picks. Yeah.
All right. Our good mate Dave Simple Goal, who's leading the way in Sky Fantasy Football, he asks, interested to hear what you think we should be doing with Chelsea assets. He owns Rudiger. He wants to know whether he should hold him for the blanks or sell him. So I don't own... Oh, you go ahead, Sam, because I think you've got Rudiger, haven't you?
I do. I certainly wouldn't want double. I do have double Chelsea in my season-long game. Got Rudiger and James. Just looking at their fixtures. City, Brighton, Tottenham, then the 2 blanks, of course. Yeah. I mean, you could possibly keep them for the 3. I know which route you're down, Tom. I mean, if I had the luxury moves, I'd chip them out defensively, I think. Man City, we talked about it already. I don't know which way it's going to go. It could be a 0-0. It could be very low scoring. I really don't know. With that one, Brighton will probably be low scoring for sure. So you could get a return there, and then the Tottenham game's hopefully going to bring a little bit of, for the neutral, a little bit of flair. The one thing I do say about Rudiger is he likes an attack and return, doesn't he? So there's that. He seems to have chances each week, and I think he's had an assist and a couple of goals. So yeah, a couple of assists, a couple of goals, I think.
Definitely puts himself forward, doesn't he?
So if you haven't got other fires to burn, there's certainly nothing wrong with keeping him. Or keeping them. I don't know about 2, but certainly, like in Dave's case, Rudiger, like myself, if I need to make the moves elsewhere, I'll just leave him in and then deal with that. We'd deal with a couple of blanks at the time. Again, going off the previous comment where strategy 4, 5, 6 weeks in advance is probably not the best thing at the moment with the amount of injuries and COVID.
Yeah, nice one. The only thing I would add to that is I'm pretty sure that Salah, well, all the African players return from AFCON at a similar time to when Chelsea go away to the Club World Cup. So I'm pretty sure that I'm going to play my FanTeam wildcard that week, which should allow me to both bring in Salah and then get rid of those Chelsea players. Well, I don't own Rudiger. I've got Alonso, James and Mount, who I'd probably get rid of for those blanks. So I'm thinking of playing the wildcard to bring Salah back in, get rid of my Chelsea players and tidy up my team a bit. So that's another option you could explore there.
Yeah, I think I've been having similar thoughts. I know we'll go over this in the next video when we do the season long team a little bit, but yeah, I think I could be doing very, very similar, Tom.
All right then, I'm just conscious of time. We got one final question from our good mate Luke NDN. So I think, well, I don't think you had him actually, but he's asked on our thoughts on Ronaldo for the second half season game. It's probably why I've fallen down the ranks, to be honest. But he says he'd probably be a good 2,000 places up now with a cheaper forward on the season-long game rather than picking Ronaldo. But yeah, Luke seems to think that he's essential at least until Salah returns, and yeah, wants to know what we think. So to be honest, I know, my gut feel as to how he'll do is not great, but I just know that Ronaldo's probably going to be the most owned and the most captained player in that second half season game this week. I think most people are going to have him in captain him, so I think the safest pick is to go with him. But yeah, if your gut tells you that he's not going to do very well, I've considered captaining Maddison, and you've stuck the armband on him this week. Yeah, I think Maddison's a very good alternative to Ronaldo this week. Anything to add to that, Sam?
Yeah, it depends where you're coming from. And I know Luke kind of, from speaking to Luke, he wants his team to do pretty well and go for it a little bit based off his season-long game. I'm happy to have a bit of fun with it. So, I couldn't afford both Kane and Ronaldo in that. And I think the rationales you just given to have Ronaldo perfectly viable. And if he comes away with 2 or 3 goals over the double game week or over the next 3 or 4 games, it wouldn't surprise me at all. I think he's always going to be a good pick. It's Cristiano Ronaldo. If you want a bit of fun, then maybe a little bit of a differential route you could go down. Like I said, I'm having a bit of fun with that second one, and going without Ronaldo. Hopefully it pays off.
I think we may have had one more question from someone else. I'll just flash that up. So yeah, good man Dan Cox was just asking for our overall strategies for the half-season game. So hopefully, yeah, our view of our strategy, you just pick that up by watching what we've just done, really, picking our teams, etc. We got one more question from SkyFF Bruno. Well, I'm going to really struggle to answer this one. He says, Sa or De Gea? Feels like it's a really close call. Yeah, I agree. I think that's, goalkeeper, you probably have 3 players, like I said. Ramsdale, De Gea and Sa. Either or will probably score similar points. Maybe what you could do as a tactic, because I think the goalkeeper is probably the most contentious position, is maybe pick the rest of your 10 players and then see how much budget you've got left for a goalkeeper. So it might well be that you can only afford Sa and then get him.
Yeah, Wolves next 5, Southampton, Brentford, Arsenal, Tottenham, Leicester, and United, West Ham, Burnley, Southampton. I'd probably just edge United's fixtures there, but then United are leaky. It's just a really, really difficult decision.
Shame.
So what you just said, pick your other 10 and then see what you've got left. It wouldn't surprise me if they come out with very similar points. In fact, I've got their sort of comparative stats up between the 2 of them now, and it's very, very similar the last few game weeks. 5 or 6 game weeks. So, yeah, I think it's going to remain that way for sure.
Nice one, mate. I think that does it for this video then. Thanks for your time, Sam. That was really good.
No, pleasure, and thanks for everyone for listening. And I think we'll have another backup video coming up very soon on the actual season-long game, won't we?
Yeah, very conscious this was our first one and everything. So yeah, if anyone watching this could leave us a comment with some feedback as to what we could do better next time or whatever, we'd greatly appreciate any feedback you have. All right, then I'll end it there. Thanks, everyone.